discussion, please join me in welcoming Adam Settino. Adam manages solutions engineering team at OpenSpace, where he helps builders become more efficient by implementing reality capture technology on projects. Prior to joining OpenSpace, Adam worked at Lee Kennedy for 9 years as VDC manager and director. We'll answer your questions that come in throughout the webinar, so don't forget to submit them in your Q&A section of the webinar console, and we'll tackle as many as possible at the end of the webinar. And now I'd like to hand things over to Adam Settino, who will introduce our presenters joining us from Lee Kennedy. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you for the introduction, Scott. Before we get started, I'd really like to first thank my guests for joining us today. As Scott mentioned, full disclosure, I worked at Lee Kennedy for 10 years and was the director of VDC before joining OpenSpace. It's a great company with really great and talented people, and it's very special for me to be joined by some of the best people I've ever worked with. We have Sebastian Barbagallo, Christopher O'Neill, and Chris Pennie. Seb has worked in estimating, pre-construction, and he was a super out in the field for a few years. He was actually on the first pilot project we did with OpenSpace, and he's going to talk about that project along with another one of how they used OpenSpace on their project. Then we have Chris O'Neill, who is my first hire and probably the best decision I made while running the VDC department. Lee Kennedy would definitely not be where they are today with technology if it wasn't for him being a part of the team. And when I did leave, believe me, he couldn't kick me out of my office fast enough when he took my spot as director of VDC. And then we have Chris Pennie, who's the senior VP of operations, and is one of the best people I've ever worked for. He just gets it. One of the biggest reasons I think construction companies either succeed or fail with rolling out technology is executive buy-in. And he just really understands that technology is where the construction company is going. And if you don't hop on board now, you're just going to be more behind in the future when you do hop on board. So we're going to be doing a little discussion at the end. So just a quick overview of agenda. I'm going to do a real quick feature overview of OpenSpace for those of you who aren't familiar with it. I'm going to try and be 5 to 10 minutes because we really want to get to I know you're here to listen to the people from Lee Kennedy. And then I'm going to toss it over to them where Chris O'Neill is going to talk about Lee Kennedy's uses in pre-construction and construction. And Seb's going to talk about those case studies I mentioned on the projects he worked on. And then Chris Pennie and I are going to be doing something a little different I don't really see on webinars, just have a discussion back and forth, because I know a lot of people join these who are just getting started with technology. So I think it would be really beneficial for those people to hear the viewpoint from a vice president executive level. And with that, I'll get going with the features. So what is OpenSpace and how does it work? The simple answer is it's the fastest and easiest way to photo document your job site. If that's all you remember from this presentation today, then we've done our jobs. All you need to do is 360 camera here. Wear a 360 camera mounted to your hard hat. And then you just open up the OpenSpace app, you select the level you're about to walk, and you hit record, and that's it. Then you just walk the site like you normally would. And what we're doing is capturing 360 video at 2 frames a second. So every half second, you're getting a 360 image. And then when your walk is complete, you just tap stop, go to the next level and start again. Or you can upload it via your mobile device or back at your computer with our desktop sync application. Then after the upload, within 15-20 minutes, the images are geolocated on your floor plan and ready to view just by clicking on the plan location. And this is what that looks like. You can navigate the images by clicking anywhere on the plan. The path walked, which is overlaid on the plan for the date you are looking at, or you can use the little blue donuts that are similar to Google Maps, and it's essentially a time machine. Most photo documentation is reactive. You know, you're out on the site with your cell phone, you take a photo of an issue, and then you track that issue. OpenSpace is more proactive, where you're fully capturing your site, and it allows you to capture the things you didn't know you need to capture. So then in the future, when issues arise, you can go back in time and see what's behind a wall. You can see what's above a ceiling. And the best part is everyone in construction knows floor plans. Everyone knows how to click the left mouse button. And that's really all you need to know. And you can view the images in OpenSpace. And then if you use BIM on your projects, you can upload those to your project. And on our end, we fully align it to all the images that you're capturing. And all you need to do is hit the BIM button at the bottom and you get the split screen view. And like I said, everybody knows plans and how to click the left mouse button. So if you know how to navigate the images, you now know how to navigate BIM. And that's when the barriers of adoption and really started to see increase of uses with the models out in the field with this tool, because there wasn't that barrier of learning a software or getting them a license to that software anymore. And then as you're walking around on those walks, you can still do the old school way and take some photos with your phone. The difference is if you're on an OpenSpace walk, it will take that photo and automatically tag it on the plan where you took that photo and provide the cone of view to show which way the photo was taken. And then we have custom tags and ways to sort these and report on them. And then to make this even more powerful, we've made integrations between PlanGrid, BIM 360, and Procore, where you can push these field notes to issues, observations, RFIs, and punch list. So you don't have to download a photo and mark it up. You don't have to download a floor plan and mark that up to indicate where you're looking. If you push it from OpenSpace, it provides that all that information to those platforms and really helps expedite the process to get those things done. And now that we're collecting all this data and all these images, we taught it to see. And this is our progress tracking. So no difference, no additional work by the people in the field doing these captures already. Our AI is just now analyzing the images to indicate where materials have been installed or where they haven't been installed. And there's three ways. There's 3 ways to view this information. One is the heat map. And this is a quick and easy way to visually see where you are at progress-wise. It color codes all the materials being installed and the phases of each material. And this is really useful for those 2 or 3 week look-aheads to plan with your teams. And then also in the subsequent meeting, you can look at the new capture and confirm that you installed what you discussed. And then all the historical data is here too. So if you want to go back and look where the project was at any certain point in time, you can do that. Then we have this view, which I like to call kind of the project executive, project manager view, the big 300-foot kind of look at your project to see where you're at. It has the levels across and the trackers vertically. It gives percentage complete for each. So if I just want a good quick look and understand where I'm at for my project, I come to this view. I don't have to track down the foreman. I don't have to track down the superintendent to pull that information from. It's right here for me anywhere, whether I'm in the office or in the field. And now we've integrated it with schedule as well, so that you can see those colors there indicating where you're ahead of schedule, on schedule, falling a little bit behind schedule, or falling a lot behind schedule. And that's a real good tool to catch where you're falling behind well before you would with the traditional meets. And then we have the productivity view. And this is really a cumulative look at how much has been installed to date over time. And then the top chart is how much material was installed from one capture to the other. This is a good real sense. At the start of the project, you can see how you're doing installation-wise. If it's too slow, figure out why, to get to that schedule at the end. If, unfortunately, you do fall behind schedule, this is an easy way to figure out what rate you need to install to get back on schedule. And then with the next subsequent captures, you can see if you're hitting that install rate to confirm whether you're getting back on track and you're hitting that install rate to get back on schedule. So why does OpenSpace work for our customers? It's pretty simple. And that's the first one, simple. It's simple to capture the data. If it's not easy to capture it, your field teams aren't going to capture it. If you don't have the data, you're not going to have it to use and you won't see the value. It's easy to view. Like I said, if everybody in construction knows floor plans and click the left mouse button. And if I always say it kind of sounds silly, but with pushing a lot of technology out into the field, I know that it can be something as simple as 2 clicks versus 5 clicks, which is the difference between adoption or not. And that's why OpenSpace gets adopted. It's so easy to use. And if they're not using it, you don't see the value. And it's fast. You're getting our images back from those captures back within 15 to 25 minutes to view. And our progress tracking will be processed within 12 hours. Construction happens fast. If the data is 24 to 48 hours old, it becomes less and less valuable. And we're giving actionable data quickly to make decisions on. And that's why it's powerful. It's simple to capture, it's easy to use, and it's processed quickly so you can make those actionable decisions and keep your project on schedule. And that's why we're seeing this from our customers. We average about 2,100 captures per day. We've been used on over 15,000 projects, and we've captured over 11 billion square feet. And I hope that wasn't too fast for everybody, but that was the quick and dirty overview of what OpenSpace can do. Really want to get to the team from Lee Kennedy. So I'm going to hand it over to Chris Pennie now to do a little overview of the company.
Right on schedule. Just a quick snapshot as to who Lee Kennedy is. We are a Boston-based firm that was founded in 1978. We're still privately owned, family-owned company, serving a better part of New England, but basically Boston-based. Very proud of our safety record. We've got an ENR of 0.75. As you'll see throughout today's presentation, we've really advanced utilizing technology in a lot of different aspects of what we do, both in pre-construction and the field. Our client base is generally 80 to 85% repeat customers, so we really focus on that, building those relationships and maintaining them. The sectors we touch, I won't read them all here. We cover a wide range of different building sectors, from life sciences to commercial, academic, high-rise hotels, those types of things. And our employee base, including our support labor out in the field, the laborers and carpenters that help keep our jobs clean, functional, and safe throughout the lifespan of it, is 230 of those people, including the office staff there. And just as general sense, volume-wise, we've done about $4 billion worth of work put in place over the past 10 years. So with that, Chris O'Neill will speak to how we utilize technology out in the field.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Adam, for the introduction. My name's Chris. I run our virtual design department, and my responsibility is basically to support our project teams in pre-construction and construction by enabling them with the software and tools required to plan, bid, and build successfully. So I'm going to show you how we use OpenSpace at Lee Kennedy from an operational standpoint, and then that's going to lead into Sebastian following up with some specific on-project use cases. All right, so how do we use it? In the pre-construction area, it's mostly for pre-bid walkthroughs. So what does our team need to do? They need to distribute captures out to our subcontractors. We're using this to align the views from the site to the team that might not have been there for the walkthroughs. And this creates a virtual site walk. That's something that we can always go back to. The old method of doing photographs, where they are, who took them, the quality, it's been a little bit of a challenge, and OpenSpace has helped us simplify that on a pre-construction level. And then in construction, this is part of our weekly captures. This is the responsibility of the superintendent, APM, assistant super, field engineer, whoever's on the site that needs to see the data, needs to see what the site looks like. They'll be capturing that weekly. It's a tool that we use at our OAC meetings for installation and tracking. We use the BIM Compare tool, and we use this, the Procore Integration, which I'll get into in a little bit. So in pre-construction, so a little overview of pre-construction at Lee Kennedy on 2021. This isn't built volume, but this is estimated volume, and that's $2.6 billion worth of work. So staying competitive with our bids is important, and making sure that our subcontractors are able to see and walk through the project is very important. This number for pre-bid walkthroughs is skewed a little bit. The pre-construction group at Lee Kennedy is divided into our special projects team and our large projects team. Our special projects team is doing anything from a 2,000 square foot office fit out to a 360,000 12-story lab job in an existing building. But they're the ones that are churning through up to 70, 80 projects a year, just quick. So the way that we enable these two sides of our pre-construction department, we have 3 OpenSpace cameras that are dedicated to the group, and these teams are responsible for creating the projects when they come in from RFP. There's various team members that are going to be on each project, so it's not a specific person who's responsible for the captures, it's whoever's available. And then as that pre-construction team gets built out, everybody needs to be on the project with access to these things. And then the third part is distributing the captures to our trade partners and the people who might or might not have been there for these pre-bid walkthroughs. So the team requirements, what do we need to do in pre-construction? We need to create the project. Like I said, these things are coming in fast. And our pre-construction team, they're estimators, right? They're not VDC personnel, they're not project managers, but they need to have an interface that works for them. So before the project's even established in Procore, before it's established in our ERP, they need to be able to create this project in OpenSpace and get out to the field and do a capture, because that's the information that's going to enable the next part of the project. Upload drawings easily and quickly. Creating levels, you just drag and drop the PDF. It's great. It works for these teams, and it's something they can go back to and edit afterwards. So I alluded to on the last page, access to all available projects. The pre-construction team grows throughout, and sometimes they'll need to add internal team members, other project managers, once we figure out who's going to be assigned to which projects. The other thing that they're going to need to do is creating shared folders, which I'm going to get into on the next slide. And that's going to help us distribute this information out to our subcontractors. So the shared folders is a way of taking the captures that we do on these site walkthroughs and getting that information into the hands of the people who are going to be bidding the job. It helps us stay competitive, but also if we have, say, 3 electrical subcontractors bidding this job, we don't want to have to add each individual user. The shared folders are a way to create a public link that we can distribute out during the bidding process. And once we get locked in to a certain trade partner, once we get onto the project, we can either delete that shared folder or lock it out. And then those people that aren't a part of this project moving forward no longer have access to it. But the good thing for us is that, you know, it helps keep our subcontractors informed of what's out there. It's not just the one person from our fire protection team that went out there and saw it. They can share that with everybody who's going to be bidding the project internally as well. So the shared folders are a huge, huge asset. And that's the capture. This is an example of a project that we did on Arlington Street in Boston. And that's just the 2 captures that we did in the pre-bid walkthrough. So that would be the only things that they have publicly available. And then once it moves further than that, we can take those captures away. So that's the true value in pre-construction. Usually it's only one site walk, maybe a second one if there's any missing information or we didn't have access to a certain area. But once that project's established, then we move into construction. So this is a little overview of what we're doing in construction right now. That 2022 number, we're doing about $400 million worth of work getting billed, and this is spread across 25 to 30 active projects at any given time right now. And so that can vary in size. It varies on personnel. It varies if it's new construction out of the ground or whether it's a small interior fit-up job. We're running about 15 OpenSpace cameras across these jobs right now. And each job is responsible for its own weekly captures. So for the most part, we'll have a camera sitting in the trailer at some of our larger projects. Our smaller projects where there's a PM that's on multiple 2 or 3 different jobs at a time, they'll have that camera in their backpack, and they're carrying that to the site and letting the site team run with it there. We also have cameras by personnel, our MEP, quality, safety, even scheduling. If there's something specific that they need to capture for MEP, which I'll get into a little bit when we talk about the BIM Compare tool, they'll go out the day before an MEP coordination meeting and just capture what's installed. It uploads overnight, and it's a good snapshot that they can bring up at the meeting instead of having to go out, walk out on site afterwards, and they can use the BIM Compare tool for that. I'm going to touch briefly on permission levels. This is something that OpenSpace gets really well. We're the site admins as the GCs, and we're responsible for distributing information out to our subs and our owners. So we're controlling certain things, creating folders, who's on the project, what users they are, sheets, level names. We're creating the field notes. We're gathering the captures. We're in charge of the Procore integration. We're the ones that are access to push anything that we need up to Procore, and doing any sort of model uploads. And when we push that out to our subcontractors and owner levels, they're just viewing the project. So they have access to all the captures, which is great. But those administrative tools that are allowed on the GC side help us stay in control of the information when it gets up there. Adam talked a little bit about field notes. I'm going to dive into kind of how we're using that. You can see on this page here, this is an example of a project that we did over in the Back Bay, in the Fenway area. Field notes are a way that we can status any specific challenges that we run out in the field. We can set priorities, and we can filter and tag based off of what the observation is. So this is typically done by the person who's going to be capturing. We'll walk through if there's anything that needs to be punched or anything that's installed incorrectly. They can take a photo of that and assign a priority level to it, put in the description what needs to happen next, and if necessary, they can push it up to Procore through their Procore Integration tool. That Procore Integration works with tagging to RFIs or observations. So if an RFI is already created and someone goes out on a site walk and can either status it as installed or still something that needs to get reviewed or looked at, they can tag to an existing RFI. Or if something comes up during the site walk, they can create an RFI directly from the OpenSpace walk and from the field note that they capture. You don't have to capture a field note when you're on site. It's something that you can go back to. If you took a photo on your phone and then you go back to the web afterwards, you can add that field note in. And it's just a way of really integrating that plan view site walk with the information that's up on Procore. And it's a tool that we're using all the time. The Procore integration works in two directions too, which is great. So in addition to being in the OpenSpace web app and being able to push stuff up to Procore, when you're in Procore, we talk about barriers, right? And having the app for OpenSpace available as a configuration within Procore, you don't need to leave that interface. So you can click the application tab in the top right, open up the OpenSpace walk, and that information stays within Procore. So it just prevents any sort of back and forth and really consolidates where you're finding that information. So at OAC meetings, this has a ton of value. It's something that can be brought up on the screen during the meeting. One of the things, challenges that we get from our field personnel all the time, it's like, okay, let's go out and see it. Let's go out and check it out. Well, you can do this if we plan, which we do, to walk the sites prior to the OAC meeting. That OpenSpace data is only a couple hours old, right? If we capture it the afternoon and that OAC meeting is the next morning, what we have up on the screen matches pretty well with what's out on site. So it eliminates that and expedites a lot of the communication around specific field issues. The BIM Compare tool, Adam talked about this. This is a huge asset for our MEP coordination team and our MEP supers. They can track installation up against the model. Like we said, that capture the day before, that NWD file that they're using throughout coordination, they can push that up as well. So that next morning, once everything gets processed, they're looking at the installed condition up against what's being coordinated. And when something gets installed, if something changes in the field, they can take a look at the model and make sure that that captures all the changes that were talked about or that were discussed. Another asset to the BIM Compare tool is being able to look in wall and take a look at any sort of pipes, conduit runs, gases, etc., that are going to be installed behind the wall, and just confirming installation there. This was a great tool on one of our projects because it allows our project managers, people that aren't that model savvy, to model compare, right? They're jumping into the floor plan in OpenSpace, and all they have to do is click a button that says BIM in the bottom right corner. They do have to click on the wall and right click and hide so that you can see what's in behind it, but that's it. That's the only barrier. The views match, so there's no model navigation. You don't have to understand. There's no licenses. It's very, very simple. OpenSpace does a great job of putting this power in the hands of our subcontract or of our supers and PMs and subcontractors. I'm going to touch briefly on tracking. We started this on one of our projects, the one over in the Fenway, as a pilot project for us, just to see the power of this tool, and it's amazing how fast it works. We were able to track the framing installation and understand the different phases, steps that went through, percent complete. The color-coded floor plan, providing a map of the walls and the different statuses. You could track what areas our drywall sub was in at certain times, and you can see the progress and set the date based off of that. And the last thing with the progress tracking is being able to retroactively review the progress at certain milestones. Where was it at this date? Where was it when this requisition came in? And it was a tool that our PMs found pretty successful. All right, so with that, I'm going to pass this off to Sebastian right now and talk about a couple of case studies that we've done.
Thanks, Chris. So, like Adam mentioned during the introductions, I'm currently a senior pre-construction manager, but I did spend about 4 or 5 years on the infield in the superintendent role, assistant superintendent role. And I was actually on the first project that Lee Kennedy used with OpenSpace, and that was a wood frame building out in Charlestown, Massachusetts. 6 stories, 177 units, wood frame construction. Really a seamless onboarding process. The OpenSpace team worked with Adam, and Adam worked with us to go ahead, and we were able to, it's a very intuitive, got up and running very smoothly, and it was very easy to use. Made my life as an assistant super doing, and my responsibility was progress documentation for the photos, so much easier than it had been before we got the product. So living both lives there, I was extremely happy to get it. And really, besides just the ease of progress documentation, it really helped us out in 2 specific ways in this project. The first was during the summer of this project, about 4 years ago. It was a very hot, humid summer, and this building, being a wood frame building, unfortunately experienced some mold growth, and we had to stop the project, stop all progress, go ahead and remediate the process, dehumidification, chemical treatments, and it really ground the process to a halt. And where OpenSpace helped us out was twofold. One was, we were able to go ahead and kind of track progress and growth of the mold with the photos, and 2, go back in time and, once the project gets underway, and where we were able to show with timestamps and the progress photos, how this problem affected our schedule and how the delays were. So, when you're going back and dealing with ownership or, with a claim, you can always go back and you have this document that lives on OpenSpace, and it lives there. And you can go back and track, and you could show visually, how things went, and it's very helpful in that regard. So, and the second thing on this project, which OpenSpace helped us out with, was windows. So, like all projects, there's always that one vendor that always seems to be having trouble getting projects on site. This project happened to be the window vendor, and just kind of a situation where they weren't coming on site. They're getting installed late. They're getting left out. And that was obviously affecting our interior work. And with OpenSpace and doing the regular walks, we were able to go and show them very easily, these windows were left out for this long. And it eliminates a lot of the, back and forth with the vendor. And, after the project is done, you're not navigating through hundreds or thousands of all these different elevation photos. You're able to go back in OpenSpace, click an elevation side, and go back in time, and you can very definitively see time-stamped evidence of progress on the site, on the exterior windows being left out or installed or moved. So it proved very valuable in that regard in those discussions, and really prevents having to go back and navigate through all photos and the quality of those, and the filing process of old style of documenting progress, just infinitely better. I was very happy to have it. The most recent project that I used OpenSpace on was a 14-story building out in Quincy, and we use it for the typical progress photo documentation, like we talked about. Very easy, very seamless. But with this building, it's 14 stories. Every floor looks the same. Every room almost looks the same. Very repetitive. And I can't imagine if you had to do this with the traditional method of taking photos. Everything looks the same. You would never know where you are in the building. But with OpenSpace, when you're in the building, looking at it on the floor plan, very easily to decipher which part of the building you're looking at, which photo you're at. So makes it life so much easier. And we all know the easier it is, the more likely you are to do it. The more likely you are to do it, the more evidence you're going to have when you need it. And it was definitely very valuable in this case. Also, this project, it was going on during 2020, during sort of the peak of the COVID shutdowns. And we really saw a lot of benefit of this because people who maybe were reluctant to come to site could still see the site and see the progress being made and with remotely with the shared folders and logins that Chris had mentioned, and really valuable in that, especially during rec reviews. You're able to send those files over to someone reviewing the rec. They can track the site. They have any questions they have. They can go look at it themselves with the 360 images, all time stamped, all very recent. So hugely valuable there. Makes the PM's life extremely easy. Again, a couple case studies where this project where OpenSpace really built this out. The first one was this being a residential building, very tight construction, tight quarters, tons of blocking, tons of millwork on the walls, cabinets, vanities, and bathrooms, all right up against MEP water lines and drain lines. And so where we did with OpenSpace is we would obviously walk the space prior to the room being boarded. And then when it comes time for the millwork installer to install the cabinets, we can give him access to these files. He can look within the wall, almost like having X-ray vision, and say, okay, well, there's water lines that are running right above this base cabinet. So I got to make sure when I'm not putting my screws where those water lines are. And it just makes life infinitely easier and, put your mind at ease that you're not going to have someone, putting screws through a water line and causing a flood throughout the building. So it really bailed us out in that sense. And it was hugely beneficial because having to document that the old fashioned way with photos times 100, 140 kitchens and 200 bathrooms and getting that information sorted and distributed to the right audiences would have been a disaster. But, them having the tool, being able to pick where they want to be, what room they're in, look at that wall, and navigate it, it just couldn't have been easier. And the second way that OpenSpace helped was that I'm not sure if anyone's had the pleasure of going through a third-party fire safing inspection and affidavit process at the end of the project, but it's it could definitely be a challenge sometimes. No different on this job. Unfortunately, with this project, there was a little bit of turnover between the inspector's office and then our team as well. And somehow or another, there's about 75 fire safing locations that had fallen through the cracks where the inspector had wanted to see a video or wanted to see evidence of fire safing and a closed up condition. And instead of having to go up and open up walls at 75 locations, we were able to pull up OpenSpace at the exact spots, go back in time to the process and show them, listen, this is a penetration of the wall. You can see the fire safing was installed here. And just by looking at the photos, they're able to be resolved, almost all of them, 50 out of the 75 off the bat. And with the other 25, since we knew exactly where the penetrations were, we were able to go and surgically open up the room and the condition, the ceiling or the wall, and define that condition to show the inspector. And without this, we would be hacking up huge swaths of finished product right before turnover to the owner. So in this case alone, OpenSpace saved us tens of thousands of dollars at the end of the project, definitely paid for itself in spades, and just really not only the cost of all that, but the time that it would have taken, the 11th hour, trying to get that ball across the end zone. It just was hugely valuable. So I would definitely recommend OpenSpace to any project manager or super or anyone, a project of any size, because it's one of those things like Adam said, it's a proactive way to go back in time and looking at photos of things that you don't need. You didn't need that, know that you needed until you want to go back in time and look at it. So the fire safing was definitely one of those items where it bailed us out of a huge jam. So that's my experience with it on site. Couldn't be happier.